So this week's episode is all about black. As voted by you this week, we are talking all about the colour black.
Do you want to first tell us about your outfit?
Okay. I feel really weird in my outfit because I don't wear black pretty much at all anymore, other than in like my shoes. I put this on and I looked in the mirror and thought, oh my gosh, I look so pale and I just felt like everything about myself had been stripped away just by wearing this colour, which is so strange because I used to wear a lot of black.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise how not like myself I felt in black until having that break from it and exploring all those other colours that do make me feel really good and do make me, feel like I look healthy in myself. And yeah, it was kind of shocking. I felt like I was going to a funeral. How do you feel?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I remember seeing a lot of photos of you when you were younger in black clothing, like all black.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought you would feel more natural in black than I would.
I don't know. How natural do you feel?
Well, I don't actually own anything black. So I had to borrow stuff from Sarah.
From my ex-husband's t-shirt. And then these pants, which are grey, but I had no other black pants.
Yeah. But I've still got red flats on. I've never been a fan of black. Even when I was in high school and a child, if you looked at my wardrobe, it would have been a sea of colors. Yeah. Every color. But not black. So I feel really weird. I feel like the light's been turned off almost. Like I feel like black, I just feel dimmed.
Yeah.
And I feel like my personality is not shining. Because I didn't realize really until maybe I started doing styling and things how much color I wear compared to other people, and then also like how much I love it. Yeah. And how much I need it. Because it just makes me feel joyful. So this makes me feel the opposite. I feel just, hidden. Yeah. And not joyful. Yeah. Yeah.
Funny. So funny. Yeah. Well, we thought that we would start the podcast by sharing our favourite facts about black. Do you want to share yours first?
Okay. Well, I am a huge fashion history nerd. I love anything to do with it, and I really love period pieces and things like that.
Yeah.
So my favorite fact is about Queen Victoria. When her husband died, she was so grief-stricken that she wore black for the next 40 years. Nothing else.
40 years.
But black.
Wow. Yeah. That's a lot of grieving.
It is.
I wonder if it just became kind of a big part of her personality.
Yeah.
That it wasn't even, well, I mean, I'm sure it was about the grieving, but, maybe it was also just that she became so comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder if she wore it for like the first couple of years and then all she owned was black and then it just kept going.
Or was it also like mourning but a rejection of other men? Probably.
Maybe.
Like, I am in black. That means I am not available. Yeah. 40 years. I can't even handle like an hour. My favourite fact about black is that it's like opposite. It contains opposites. So in terms of light and a spectrum of colour, it is a complete lack. It's devoid of any light. That's how you get black. But when it's a pigment, it's all the colours mixed together to create black. So it's both a total lack and a total fullness. Yeah. And I really love that about black, that it holds those two extremes within it. Yeah.
I never really thought about that. That's really nice.
It's cool, eh?
Yeah.
And you see that same duality in terms of the connotations of black as well, like in colour psychology. So colour psychology is what meanings, thoughts, feelings that we associate with a colour. It has those dualities. Like it symbolises conformity and conservatism, but then it also symbolises rebellion.
Yeah.
And
like the gothic and the grunge and the punk.
Yeah, but then also the clergy and the nuns and the statesmen. Yeah. So it's got that really interesting
duality.
Like, there's huge contrasts that it contains.
And then also we were talking about before how it does like it's got that meaning of purity, like with the nuns, but then it's also in like sexual, like deviant.
Yes, it's the color of fetishism,
Yeah.
as well as humility
Yeah.
and being humble and
Yeah.
sparse and frugal. It
Yeah.
seems to be a color that really invokes all or nothing,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Because it's lack and everything.
And like with the humility of just not being showy or being too out there, or put, like, again, back to the nuns, it's like, I think it was a color where it's like, we're not putting any of the focus on ourselves.
Yeah, we're obscuring ourselves. Yep. But then I guess because it can create a contrast, it also can be a color that we use to draw attention to bits of ourselves, like within fetishism, to parts of the body.
But it also has been long used with like the beatniks in like the art community.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting to me, because people that are so creative will have it as an entire almost uniform.
I feel like that kind of goes with like the whole sort of melancholic romanticism.
Yes, definitely.
In certain art forms and poetry, and making it less about you but about the work, the art, and all of those kind of like. When we were at drama school, we had to wear black every day, and that was
had to.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. For movement class or anything, like we were in black, and that's to bind everyone together as an ensemble, and then you're not pulling that focus to yourself. Like your body can become anything, essentially, I guess. Artists, beatniks, poets, it's really associated with them, but then it's also associated, like we said, with religious figures, businessmen, statesmen, witchcraft, bad luck, black cats. And it's a masculine color, but then it's also got like a feminine, elegant mystery to it, and secrecy, and power is one of its biggest connotations. That's why it's used in the corporate world so much, isn't it? I think it's really interesting, again, another like duality, that in ancient Greek mythology, it's the color of death. Like Hades' throne was black, he is dressed in black. The river Acheron that separated the living and the dead ran black. But then in ancient Egypt, the river Nile would run black when it was most fertile, because of the black soil.
Yeah, I was going to say it would be to do with the soil, the black soil.
Yeah, really rich, fertile soil. So in ancient Egypt,
they connect it to fertility.
Yeah.
So the word black actually comes from the word Blake, which was a Germanic Latin word, meaning dark, and dark and ink. And then on the other hand, it meant flash and gleam. So like having those double meanings like you were talking about.
And it also derives from the word burnt as well, and burnished, which, I guess that would have been one of the first places to see black as a pigment, would have come from charcoal. Fire. And then a lot of languages often have had two words for black, one to describe the matte black and one to describe black that's bright and luminous.
That's so interesting.
Which I think is really interesting as well. So again, there's that duality. Actually, there's two words for black in Māori as well, but I've always just thought they were interchangeable.
Right.
But I wonder if it's because there's two different types as well.
Yeah.
I'll have to find that out.
Or if you know, let us know.
Yeah. But we should probably move into black in terms of fashion history. And seeing as you're the fashion history buff.
Enthusiast.
How has black played a role in fashion throughout time?
Well, in the Middle Ages, you would see black much at all. It was a really uncommon color to see in clothing because it was very difficult to produce black. And
the dyes? Or
yes, the dyes.
Yeah, right.
So it wasn't really until the 13th, 14th century when dye production became much better and they could keep it in cloth and make those deeper, richer shades of black that you begin to see it. And it was really worn by clergy and nobility because it was so prized.
Yeah. So it was a real marker of wealth and status.
Definitely. And it had those demarcation lines between wealthy and poor.
That's interesting because there's also times where black has been worn more by people who are not in that upper echelon of society, surely. I mean, the classic is servants.
Yeah, or Downton Abbey.
Yeah. But I guess that is much later.
Yeah.
And you're talking about nobility in the 14th century. Yeah, right.
Where like Anne Boleyn and people of that time were all painted wearing black.
Yes, that's true. Black was quite heavy in that era of painting as well.
Yeah. And then there's times in history when it swung the other way, like during Marie Antoinette's reign, pastels were huge and black took a back seat.
Because you would think that colour, having like a plethora of colour and brightness would show
wealth.
Power and wealth.
Yeah.
And because at times like the rich purples have been denoting nobility as well.
Yes.
And royalty as well.
And that was a difficult dye to produce as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably why it was used by nobility. But yeah, the whole Marie Antoinette French Revolution era is fascinating with their embrace of colour and that showing hedonism and wealth and luxury, and then French Revolution, we're back to black. Like they went too far, and now, no, we are much more sedate. We're as rulers, we're restrained rather than similar to in France during the 17th century, where nobility really embraced those joyful colours as status symbols. There's many countries, particularly in the East, who have done that for a long time. You know, for them it's bright colours and colour and joyful colours that denote power, status. And I love that. Like why it feels natural to me that joyful colours should be elevated and have status. And it makes me think, you know, is there some underlying racism at play there that in the West we so strongly hold on to?
I think there must be. Black
and neutrals and those colours as powerful, and bright colours and different colours as frivolous. If you go to places like India or Mexico, and it's an abundance of that. And it's almost another way of looking down on
I think
another group.
We're saying that's silly. It's not, it's not serious.
Yeah. Well, because we're saying that. We're putting a lack of serious onto colour.
Yes.
It's not inherent to colour.
Yeah.
Colour's not, ooh, I'm silly.
Exactly.
I think it makes more sense to have those joyful colours as the powerful ones.
Yeah. And then another marker in history was after World War I, Coco Chanel came out with her little black dress.
Ah, yes.
Which I can't remember. It might have been Vogue that said it was the Ford of the fashion.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love Coco Chanel's quote when she said that every woman needs just three things: a black dress, a black jumper, and a man on her arm that she loves. I don't need a black dress, Coco, because it looks far better on you. Like, she was a winter. Like she clearly suited black. So then black becomes more chic. It's getting like a new cultural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then it was Breakfast at Tiffany's with Audrey Hepburn, kind of made it this thing that every woman needed to have, this little black dress.
Yeah. Became a marker of sort of French sophistication.
Yeah.
And
elegant.
Because France really was the centre of fashion at that time too. And there's that restraint with being elegant and classic and
simple and timeless.
Yeah. And we still believe in those ideas around fashion as well.
Yeah.
Even though everybody is so different and we're not all going to look elegant and refined in the same things.
Yeah. Well,
That's
we're
so interesting.
still sold that it's way easier to have a wardrobe of staples that are gray, white, black, brown, and they can mix and match than it is to have a colorful wardrobe, which we can get into that in another podcast.
Yeah.
But I think that's coming from what you were saying about black. It's like it's seen as timeless. In the 1920s, it was really seen as a rebellious
Yeah, during Prohibition.
Yeah.
There was a lot of authoritarian culture at that time, and then young people were really pushing back against that.
Yeah, pushing the boundaries with hair, but then with the clothing, it was, a lot of black fringe.
But interestingly, in a similar cultural time with the 1960s, it was a rejection of in the 1920s, like cutting off our hair and wearing black. And in the 1960s, it was like, we're growing our hair long and we're wearing colour.
Lots of colour, lots of prints, no bras.
It's always a rejection. Yeah, no bras. Always a rejection of what has been before, isn't it?
And then in the late 1960s, you had the Black Panthers, which were a political group. And their uniform was all black, and it was like a black beret, a black T-shirt, black trousers, and often like a leather jacket.
Right, so very much like a communist kind of outfit.
Definitely.
But in black.
Yeah, they took a lot of their ideology from Marx.
So they're reclaiming that colour, I guess, through what they're wearing. I wonder if during the Māori Renaissance in the 1980s, whether young men were influenced by that same kind of look of the Black Panthers. I think maybe they were, because I've got images in my head of Ngā Tamatoa wearing like black turtlenecks, and I wonder if they had was influenced fashion-wise, and politically from them as well. Fashion in New Zealand, we have a huge love affair with black, the New Zealand fashion industry.
Definitely.
It's like that multiple fashion designers have come to New Zealand Fashion Week from outside of New Zealand and made comment on how much black is seen on our runways and our love affair with black. And I mean, we've talked a bit about this multiple times, about why black is such a stalwart in New Zealand fashion. Partly it's because of our landscape, because we do have more of a gloomy, there's the mists, especially in the South Island. It gets quite cold.
Quite harsh.
Yeah, it can be quite harsh weather. Yeah. And then, like, I'm sure in California, where it's like sunshine most of the year, black is not seen as much. Am I right?
Yeah. When I came here, I was actually, that struck me straight away. So there's a lot of dark colors, and especially black.
Yeah. And then, so we've got the landscape, but also we've got our history, our unique history. And it was interesting, the relationship to black clothing in colonial times in New Zealand, because when settlers came to New Zealand, there's this whole kind of idea that they were shirking the class system in England, and it was more egalitarian. But then black was used as a way of showing that people were succeeding in New Zealand. So I guess they were trying to throw off their status back in England. And if they were doing well, they would buy black clothing because, again, like in the 14th century, it was harder to manufacture, harder to take care of, and so it was more expensive. And it showed that you had the means to do those things, whereas people who didn't have that same level of wealth were wearing natural fibres that weren't dyed. So we're seeing that same play of black being a status symbol in New Zealand. And I think that because, like, our colonial history is short, that still has an effect. And not only is it landscape and our history, but also our mentality and our psychological culture, because we are a country that the people on the whole, we don't like to put ourselves out there.
There's a humbleness to black, and then you don't want to be too showy or look like you're trying to grab the spotlight or too much attention.
Which is why the Protestants adopted black, because they were like, colour is too like
too frivolous.
Too frivolous, yes. Yeah, don't spend money on colour and clothes.
Yeah.
You're humble. Yeah, and I think that's really, I mean, the New Zealand culture is heavily influenced by Puritanism, and that's the same, all about black and humble. And
well, there's also a moodiness in New Zealand that the black suits it as well. And like you see it in New Zealand film.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
so that makes me think that moodiness is also affecting the clothing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of, film is sort of like a conglomeration of our psychology, our landscape, our histories, and you see it visually represented. Have you ever seen Sam Neill's documentary, The Cinema of Unease?
No.
Really?
Mm-mm.
So you're just picking up on that gloominess?
No, I noticed it, like straight away. Like when I first came, one of the first movies I saw was In My Father's Den.
Right, yeah.
And that has some real darkness to it.
Yeah, psychological darkness. Like I don't think of that movie as visually representing, but definitely the psychological darkness.
And then I saw that one, and I saw a few others, and I was like, there's a real darkness to it. Yes, psychologically. And yeah, that struck me that it might, and because you could see it in the clothing. Well, the clothing's much darker, the climate's much harsher, and so I'm picking up on all these cues.
And there's a bleakness in our films as well that the color black really lends itself to. Yeah, so you should watch The Cinema of Unease. It's just him essentially talking about that we seem to have this draw towards darkness and stories that have like an underbelly of unease to them. Yeah.
It's interesting, Sweden, if you've ever been there, it's the same there. There's a real underbelly in their film as well.
Yeah, because they do a lot of thrillers too. Yeah. Well, it's cold there, I hear.
It is bleak, and I think it's partly to the weather.
And also the fact that we're a small country. I think you probably, in places where the population is lower and it's colder, you don't want to stand out as much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in California, I mean, it's pretty, in New Zealand terms, it's summer for 9 months out of the year. And so I think that leans itself to a lot of color.
Yeah, we all wear brighter colors and more colors in summer.
And then you've got a bigger population. I mean, I didn't live in an area with a large population, but you do have a bigger population on whole, and you're definitely aware that the country is very big. And so you want to stand out. But in New Zealand, it's much smaller. You don't want to be the tall poppy.
And I think as our population grows, now you're starting to see people step outside of that more.
And it becomes more multicultural. I mean, there's so many people from overseas now.
Yeah. And there's also, I think in terms of New Zealand fashion, black has also really come from the art, not just film, but our greater art movement in New Zealand, in the same way that black was really taken on by the Beatniks and Johnny Cash and all those sort of people on the outskirts of a society or a culture. In New Zealand, I've seen it all, living in Wellington and having family that are in the arts, that black is synonymous with art and being an artist in this country. And throughout the 90s with grunge and all of those influences there, but not just in our films but in paintings of Colin McCall, like he's using that graininess and that black and that depth through it. So it's just woven into our history, I think. Although we have had periods where it's been very bright. Yeah. Like everyone did in the 80s. But we also still had a lot of the depth and darkness in the 80s as well, with our leather work and our plaids from wool and all of... So again, that's coming from a colder climate too, actually. And then like a lot of our most revered designers have been heavily influenced by the colour black, because I think of Zambezi and Nomdi, which both use black a lot and have that kind of punky gothic moodiness to their designs. And I guess even, like the further south you go, like a lot of that sort of stems from Dunedin culture throughout the 80s as well.
I was going to say
the
that.
Music, the music culture there.
Yeah. You can definitely see that it gets heavier as you go south. but like Dunedin is known as quite an arty place as well.
And quite a gothic place. And I wonder about like the future of New Zealand fashion. Do you think black will remain that keystone, keep that grip on us, or do you think that it's easing?
part of me thinks yes, because it just so suits the weather, that moodiness, the darkness and grittiness. So I feel like I don't know if another color could capture that as well as black.
It's so tied to our culture,
Yeah.
isn't it? Like it's in our sports teams.
Yeah, we didn't even talk
everything.
about that yet. Every sports team, me and the kids
Politically,
would,
yeah.
we always joke, we're like, what's the name of that sports team? Something black?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've got other colours that are coming out from our designers.
Yeah.
It's not all black, but I think it is so entrenched in our histories and our stories and our culture and the designers that have come before that it would almost be sad to lose that completely because it's part of us.
Only color that I could think that would ever replace it, if there was going to be a color like black that was iconic for New Zealand, it would be green.
I was thinking that too.
Because
you started saying that.
Just, the forest in New Zealand is so dense. And then you got the Punamu and I feel like green would also be
a dark forest green.
Yeah, a dark forest green.
It's
got to be dark.
It's got to be dark. And in terms of color analysis, black is only found in the winter palette. So most colors in the different seasons of color analysis, they exist in every palette. Their qualities are different. So we look at the intensity of a color, how bright to muted it is. We look at the value, how light to deep, and we look at the temperature, so how warm to how cool. And black is very cool, very deep, and very saturated. So it only sits in the winter home season, and particularly well in the deep winter season, sub-season. And a lot of the people who have brought black to the forefront of culture have probably been winters. I mean, like Coco Chanel was a cool winter from what I can tell.
Audrey Hepburn.
Audrey Hepburn was probably a cool winter. Modern winters were Anne Hathaway. Viola Davis.
Megan Fox.
Yeah. So black, from a colour analysis perspective, only works that well on a very small section of society. And by that well, I mean it doesn't detract from them. It lifts our eyes up to them. It makes their skin glow, all of those good things, because it's matching them in terms of where they sit on those spectrums of value, intensity, and temperature. So for me, I'm at the other end. I'm light. I am cool. So black's got that in common with me at least. But I'm light and I'm soft, whereas black is bright and deep. And yet so many of us want to wear it, or just wear it without questioning it and see it as a safe neutral, when there are much safer things. Navy is a colour that suits people, way more people than black does, and can have the same effect in terms of what you're choosing it for. And of course, anyone can wear black. You can wear whatever you like. We're just talking about from a colour analysis perspective, what brings out the best in you and reflects your natural beauty and your natural colouring. There are so many other colours that can be used in place of black. But if you have a warm undertone, especially if it's like a fully warm undertone and you wear black, what we see is a lot of all the colour, all that beautiful bronzy, earthy, tanned, glowy, golden colour that you naturally have just gets completely sucked out. And sure, you can put it back on with makeup, but if you just don't wear black, if you wear a goldy brown or a rust or any of the colours that are warm, I'm thinking of autumn colours here, but the same with springs, wearing those red oranges or the creams or the caramels or the tans, all of those colours are working with your warmth, whereas black is just sucking it all away. And so you end up with shadowing all around your face. Again, yes, you can get around it with makeup, but it's still not going to have that same effect compared to if you're wearing makeup or not and wearing colours that have that warmth that reflects all of your health and goodness in your skin.
I feel like that right now. As soon as I put on black, I just see these dark circles under my eyes
and hollows in the cheeks. Yeah,
I just get very pale.
Amazing how it changes the shape of your face as well.
So summers are very light and they're very soft, and so when a summer wears black, it's not as bad as a warmer season wearing black or like a warm spring wearing black, but it will still make you look a bit pale. And there's just a disconnection between you and the color because you're not deep enough for the black.
Or bright enough.
Or bright enough, yeah. The same, I think, is happening with us because we're both light seasons. So it's the polar opposite to us because it's very deep.
Yeah, and when we say that summers are light, springs are light, it doesn't mean you have to be white. That's a really big misconception in color analysis. It's just there's a lightness for your ethnicity. But yeah, black ends up sitting very heavy, which still creates shadowing on summers. But summers look really good in a charcoal, so they just have to soften black because the temperature is fine. But I don't think we need to get overly obsessed with not wearing black if you're not a winter, because black, as we've talked about, still has such a strong sway culturally and metaphorically that regardless of how it looks on people, we read it for certain cues, and often that's what people are using it for, to blend in or to have a powerful look. Yes, there are other options, but
I think sometimes though it's overused because we were sold, especially in the 2000s, that you combined everything with a pair of black pants and it'll look great. And if you're a warm season or a light season, that's not true because it's actually quite hard to pair things with black.
Yeah, because you end up just looking like a licorice all sort if you pair anything you want with black. It's a laziness about colour pairings. I'm not sure what to put this colour with, I'll put it with black before we've even explored other options. And yet there are so many other colours. There's 10 million colours and black is literally one of those colours. Like there's so many pairings that you could do. And I think we are getting better at having those other options and thinking about other colour combinations.
Well, people they want it to be simple.
Yeah,
you don't
fair
want
enough.
to spend hours choosing clothes.
Fair
and
enough.
So it's like, oh, well, I'll pair anything with a black pair of pants. But then you realize, well, actually, if I'm not a deep winter, actually black doesn't pair that well with my clothes. And using those other neutrals is far easier.
The outfit looks a lot more elevated and more put together, which is when we often are going to black, is for those things, to have that effect. If you're pairing like colours with like colours. So if you're wearing a cream blouse, wear the tan pants because they are going to instantly elevate each other, whereas black's going to make it look disjointed and not pulled together, not considered. So I mean, that's one of the great things about knowing your colour palette and working with a colour palette is having that cohesion in outfits.
And why it looks that way is because black is such an intense color. And
Stark,
it's so
harsh colour.
It is the darkest color, and so it looks quite harsh. So if you have a nice lavender top on and then you have black pants, I mean, even though those are two cool colors, but it'll be very high contrast in comparison to the top. So now that you've had a day in black, do you think you will go back to incorporating black into your wardrobe?
No. No. I just do not feel like me in these colours now. Like the sort of drama of it, like the moodiness, yes. But it doesn't feel moody to me anymore. It feels more like the lack of black. You know, like I would rather be in a moody navy or a moody green that has more depth to it.
Do you feel like
that makes sense?
Yeah, like do you feel like it's not interesting enough? Like it's
I don't know. I feel that it's too much of a contrast to me. And so I'm not getting that mystery and depth. I'm getting washed out and like, I'm getting too mourner and not enough fetish. Now that I've seen myself in so many other colours, I I crave them. I feel more like me in them, and I feel like I look healthier in them, and I just I don't feel the need to wear black. I feel like I have, people often talk about breaking up with black after you have a color analysis if you're not a winter. I don't feel like I've needed to break up with black. I didn't try and break up with black. I thought I'll just keep wearing it, but naturally it has left, and I've found a wardrobe that works so much better for me, so I'm not sad to let it go. But I mean, you never really wore black, so you didn't have that transition.
I occasionally wore black when I had an office job because it was seen as like, you have an office job, you wear black.
Yeah.
But it was always kind of in my bottoms or, you know, my shoes, that kind of thing. But I've always known that I looked really bad in black. There was just total disconnect.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like me at all.
Yeah.
Always felt like I looked sickly. And so I tried having that little black dress, and then every time I put it on, I'd be like, why does it work on everybody else and on me I look dead? So no, I never.
So opposite you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I have nothing black in my wardrobe.
So you're not tempted to go get a black wardrobe?
I will never, ever have a black wardrobe.
But all you winters, you look stunning. You can have it.
Yes.
But that's the nice thing. Like, everyone has a different kind of energy and beauty, and we don't all have to look the same.
No.
No.
No, it looks amazing on other people. I know it does not look amazing. It does not feel amazing on me.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing for me too. It's the feeling of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, we hope that you enjoyed hearing all about black, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks' time for another podcast. Leave us your suggestions if you have something you want us to talk about. Let us know your thoughts about black and how you feel about that colour.
Yeah. Do you love to wear black?
Yeah. Do you love to wear black? Do you love black fashion in New Zealand, abroad, throughout history? And we'll talk to you soon.